And then as soon as you're ready, we can't wait to hear from you. Sorry, are you familiar with Zoom? Do you know how to share your screen?
Yes, I'm sharing my screen. Just a minute.
No, that's completely fine. Just wanted to make sure that you knew how to use
Yes,
it.
is my screen visible to you?
Perfect. It is just coming up now. There we go. We are ready for you and we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you so much. So, my topic is Voices of Presence podcast as embodied pedagogy in online teacher education. So, this topic presents the role of podcast in enhancing teacher education, uh, how it is in this age of technology where online teacher education, even online teaching, is being uh, replaced over traditional teaching. So why podcast is getting in like vogue, and why it is being considered today in today's academia. So I will be talking about these challenges of online teaching. So as we know that there are a lot of challenges as well when we talk about this online teacher education, because it has created both opportunities and challenges, because we know that digital platforms have access across geographical boundaries, and but however when we talk about limitations, that there are reports of isolation, disengagement with students, and lack of meaningful human connection in virtual learning. So because of that, this thing, because learners leave, because learners feel distracted and exhausted when like online thing, okay, online platforms. But there are opportunities as well when we talk about podcasts, when we take consideration as a pedagogical tool, when we start having this kind of pedagogical tool, and this provide a digital space for everyone. And podcasting also has emerged as a very good pedagogical tool, and it is evolving even now, because when we talk about, when you see papers related to podcast, it has been published and it is being published yet now as well. So so it has a very good pedagogical tool option, but even though today it is viewed as a content delivery mechanism rather than a rich pedagogical device. So my research question is, how might podcasting serve as an embodied and relational pedagogical approach in online teacher education to foster reflective practice, authentic assessment, and human presence in digital learning environment? This is the literature review, synthesizing empirical research and podcasting as a teacher education. So I have taken data from various Google indexes, like for example, Google Scholars, Scopus, and Web of Index Science. And these are the keywords included like podcast, teacher education, reflective practice, embodied learning, relational pedagogic, and authentic assessment. So these are my eight empirical studies that I have included in my studies. Uh, like these are, they are talking about the methodology is given there, and the year of publication, and what are the key findings uh, of these studies. Like we can see that when we talk about podcasts, so podcasts build self-efficacy, self-awareness, critical thinking, also having empowering independent inquiry, and it correlates to willingness to use podcast. So lots of, almost many article talking about the benefits of podcast and how it is benefit the entire academic community. And even in online teacher education, which I'm going to talk about that. So how podcasting as working as an embodied pedagogy, because it is not merely a content delivery, but it also engage learners cognitively, emotionally, and physically. because Ketonen and Nguyen, as they have identified three enabling dimensions of reflective podcasting. First is experientiality that derives from sharing experiences within assessment tasks and complexity of podcast production itself. So those students, like first year students, found open-ended podcasting assignment both challenging and empowering. So it challenges them to take charge of the learning, and also it gives dialogic space and accessibility of both podcast format, which students perceived as more meaningful than the traditional essays or journals. So this is more accessible, more meaningful, rather than rigid, gives more space, and also it reflects mutual discussion and trust fostered, deeper engagement and course content as well. When we talk about reflective practices through podcast, so when we talk about reflection, so as we know that it is a foundational objective of teacher education. So podcasting offers unique affordance for teacher reflective through its dialogic, multimodal, accessible nature. So this author Chen and Bethather found that podcast production among 46 students contributed significantly to awareness, social environment, enhanced critical thinking. So they student identified with classmates challenges and gain insight from peers' perspectives. So having this peer perspective let them allow learning as well. Because in classroom we know that learning is more happens when happening in peer learning, because we learn more from peers rather than teachers. And when we talk about professional identity development, they argue this King and Watt 2025 argued that speaking out loud and listening to oneself is essential component of podcasting. It enables increased self-knowledge and reflexivity. Uh, one researcher, just read it. Am I, yes, my video is not on. Just sorry for that. Uh, yeah. So, so argued that speaking out loud as listening to oneself is the essential component of podcasting that enables increased self-knowledge and reflexivity. So one of the main aspects of podcasting is also reflexivity, which is one of the major component of teacher education, because reflection is very important. Also self-knowledge, okay. One researcher noted that the act of considering and then adding music to tie it all together gave the work a life that I had not felt in other assignments. So that is the power of podcasting in teacher education, where students can have this kind of experiences. So when we talk about relationality and social presence, uh, like Lee and Liu identified relationality as a significant factor in student success with podcast assignments. Like student emphasize the importance of strong student-instructor relationship with one participant studying. If you know your professor or feel comfortable with them, if it's a safe space, then things click on your head. Then again, similarly, one author, Wake, he emphasizes about relational authenticity that describe how podcasting empowered them to explore equity issues through storytelling and dialogue that felt genuine and grounded. So this is also a polyvocality, that is speaking and listening with. They also, these authors introduce this, the way many voices come into conversation through podcast. Because through podcast, we listen to the many voices once together. So drawing on this McLuhan distinction between hot and cool media, the position podcast as cool media requiring high audience participation. Means that listener can have a reaction to what the speaker is saying, even a negative reaction, but then can have this time and space to enter a reflective conversation with themselves about the reaction. So I had already mentioned about the reflection. That is the core of the teacher education. Again, they are having this kind of experiences through podcasting. So this is all about authentic assessment and inclusive learning as well, because this author Chen identified three self-basis sub-themes that podcasts improve identification and understanding, self-paced learning, because you are the charge of your learning and without shame and breaking the routine to learn with positive feelings. These are the some very positive aspects of podcast learning because students valued learning at their own speed without feeling pressured or ashamed. Even supporting diverse learners like you found that students, particularly those with text anxiety and ADHD, they expressed strong preference for oral assessment over traditional written exams. So oral assessment through podcasting allow for immediate instruction and clarification, reducing cognitive overload. So this is one of the major good thing about and advantage of podcasting in teacher education, how it is enhancing the uh, the experiences of students and teacher both, and how they are engaging the entire academia, how podcast is engaging. That is the main feature of that. Culturally sustaining practice, because as we talk about sustainable development, SDG 4, podcast is having this kind of feature that it is sustainable in future, and in coming future it has gives us the tool that we can rely on. How podcast creation function as embodied inquiry, or like researcher developing culturally sustaining pedagogical practices, combining authentic communication with collaborative narrative thinking. So these are the challenges and pedagogical implications. So unfamiliarity with the medium and technical barriers to accessing podcasting. Even we know that we have this unfamiliarity with this medium, and also there are a lot of technical barriers to access podcast. And even a student not seeing relevance to their learning sometimes. This author, O'Bannon et al., found students were not comfortable using podcasts to replace lectures because it is a new form. So they prefer them as supplements, not as a tool to replace lectures. And also, lack of traditional assessment rules was sometimes bewildering for students. So actually, we are all engaged in traditional learning, and we are not able to move on with that. So basically, it will take time. It takes time to evolve from different pedagogical tool. Like this is the need of time as well, because we are talking about sustainable development, how we can be sustainable. So our pedagogical tool can be also sustainable through the use of these online teaching and podcasting. So podcasting implication, because it has a rich pedagogical space, not merely content delivery tools, and it involves student in podcast production. So when we include students themselves in podcast production to value student voice and co-constructions of learning, learning become engaging and reflective. So when we design authentic multimodal assessment tasks that disrupt traditional teacher-student roles, so this is the power of podcast because it provides multimodal assessment tasks and authentic tasks, and also it provides professional development that access to podcasting correlates with willingness to incorporate podcast. So these are the challenges, and this is all about my research. Thank you so much. If you have any question, you can. Uh, I'm happy to uh, have some questions with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. Um, does this happen to be your first conference presentation as well?
Uh, Thank you so much, Nam.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. Thank you. Well, Sylvester, did you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your research with us. We've got a couple of minutes now until we have kind of our closing session. So if you'd like to have a quick movement break, and we'll have our closing session at 1:15. Thank you very much.